Hi, my name is Ken. In this video, we're reviewing Update 8 Lumen and the use of a vertical bus by exploring my current Satisfactory playthrough. I will break down for you everything I've learned from playing 100 hours of Update 8 Experimental. This video is a showcase and summary of my last 21 Let's Play episodes on YouTube and is packed with answers to all your questions on Update 8 Experimental, Lumen, vertical buses, and my future plans for this playthrough. This includes, are the features in Update 8 really worth the instability of an experimental build? How will Lumen affect your existing factories? What are some specific ways to quickly make Lumen shine using blueprints for lighting? What is a vertical bus? How would you use it, and should you use it? We will also talk about how I'm incorporating a Star Wars theme into my playthrough and discuss my plans for the design and scale of each of my planned mega factories. By the end of this video, you'll be caught up on everything I've accomplished with over 100 hours of playtime in this save. You'll be able to determine if and when migrating to Update 8 Experimental is right for you. You'll know if a vertical bus is a good fit to integrate into your future factories. You'll be armed with specific methods you can use and adapt to get the most out of Lumen in your factory. And finally, you'll know if the future content of my channel is something you are interested in following. Spoiler alert, it is. And the best part is, when this video ends, you can immediately apply all this information to your current or future factories on a new save in Update 8. So where do we begin? Like any new save, with the right starting location choice. I began my playthrough in the Northern Forest, but with a very specific starting location in mind. On the border of the Northern Forest and the Rocky Desert. If you're not familiar with this location, it is one of, if not the best, locations for resource availability, including water. It also has unlimited vegetation to fuel those early game biofuel generators. It's so good, it's almost like starting the game in cheat mode. The one big downside is that it has very little space to build a factory. So my solution? I just built mine out in the open air above the canyon. From the beginning, my plan was always to build a single factory, which I've been calling my Mega Starting Factory, that would bring me all the way up to aluminum production and Mark V belts. Before I go into detail on my thoughts on Update 8 and how best to use Lumen, I want to talk about the vertical bus system that is central to my starting factory. The most irritating part of my prior saves has always been having to upgrade factories that I've finished when new milestones are unlocked and it's time to increase production. Do I just make new factories, delete and rebuild, or just cram new machines into my existing factories? This time around, I'm not moving on to my real large-scale factories until I've got all the parts I need to design it right the first time. Because of this, I had been on the lookout for a way to organize my starter factory in a way that would make it simpler to expand and upgrade as I progressed. That's when I stumbled upon Stinarchi's video about using a vertical bus in Satisfactory. The bus concept, or using a bunch of belts together to move large amounts of resources in the same direction, isn't one that's used too often in Satisfactory. It's more of a Factorio tool. But in one of Stinarchi's videos, which I'll provide a link to in the description, he outlined a vertical arrangement that seemed very promising to me. By providing an unlimited length, multi-story line of machines access to a variety of input materials, you can effectively increase production by adding machines and upgrading belts without having to destroy or move your current machines. Just place any building in any order and use a lift and splitter to pick up any item you need off the bus. Perfect. Or so it seemed at least. So I decided to test this design using the starter factory in this playthrough, all the way up to Mark V belts. I broke my bus into 3 lines, one for smelting and foundries, one for constructors, and one for assemblers and manufacturers. As my factory grew and I began to come across some challenges, I learned a lot about what not to do, as well as when using this system might be the most advantageous. So, in the end, was building a vertical bus worth it? Let me break it down for you. In the Pro column, I never had to delete or move a single machine once I placed it. If I needed more iron ingots, well, I'd just build a Mark II miner, upgrade the belt speed, and add more smelters to the ones I had already built. It didn't matter if my copper smelters were in the way, I just extended the bus. Another advantage was having so much of my production in one tight space. And not from just a space-saving perspective. but it also made it easier to design an overflow storage and sink system. All my items were literally in one place. Lastly, it helped me keep a clean and organized factory floor. The input bus goes in a straight line, and the output buses are in straight lines. Now, my underfloor was a bit of a mess, but even with my lack of experience in building one of these, I think it turned out pretty well, and I know my next one will have a more organized subfloor. Now for the cons. One of the biggest downsides for me was running out of space. Sure, the lines will go forever lengthwise, but I didn't provide myself enough space around each of my buses. This led to the cramped belting in the underfloor. This setup was not great for a large amount of items, at least on a single bus. My final assembler and manufacturer line grew to over 30 items, and I only made it fit by switching a few of my belts to a sushi-style overflow, which I'll talk more about later. Finally, it can get pretty hard to navigate as your bus grows vertically if you don't have the hover pack, or at least a jet pack. Once I got the hover pack, building got substantially easier. Too bad I was almost done. Overall, I'd say if you have a specific factory in mind, with a manageable number of inputs, and you have access to the hover pack, this could be a great way to organize your factory, especially if you're an experienced pioneer. I enjoyed changing up the usual factory design and trying something new, and I do plan on using vertical buses in my mega factories in the future for this save. As my factory grew, so did my experience with Update 8. Many of the new features weren't available or visible to me in the early game. That is, until I built my underfloor and it became clear I would need to take Lumen into account. Lumen is, quite literally, a game changer. An important thing to keep in mind with Lumen is that there is much less indirect lighting from the environment, so enclosed areas can get very dark very fast. Most importantly, you won't be able to see without a flashlight in large areas of your factory, even during the day. At this point in my save, I knew I needed to get lighting in the underfloor as soon as possible, so I rushed the materials needed. It took a few hours of experimenting to figure out what types of signs worked the best for lighting. At the time of this recording, a recent patch has added Lumen support to the old lighting, and it looks even better now than it did when I designed it. Two great uses of Lumen and signs I found early were the large billboards recessed into the 2-meter foundations I was using in the ceiling. It makes a very clean lighting source, no wires, and it fits perfectly. The lighting is soft and the sign is very customizable, and I hope you use this design in your factory. The other use I found was for lift-down lighting. I think it adds a great touch, and I've used it in multiple places. Both methods require the use of a rotated horizontal painted beam to get the placement right. Just recently, as I was putting the finishing touches on this factory, I put Lumen to use with 2 more methods of lighting, and I think they really complete the look of my factory. For the first method, I wanted something that highlighted the machines at night, just a little, without taking away from the effect created by all the small lights on the belts and splitters. So I ended up hiding the signs underneath the catwalks that I built for easy machine access. I really liked how this turned out, and by using a blueprint, I could build this setup very quickly. The second use was again made with a blueprint for quick assembly. I found with a little bit of angled lighting on the rails, it really helps to showcase the factory floor and create separation from the walking area, especially when I added the small orange lights to the inside. Combined with coated concrete, I think it looks amazing. Another unexpected result from Lumen is how each belt and splitter is lit with tiny lights. It's an effect that equates to more than the sum of its parts and just looks incredible. With Lumen on, I found using more signs with a dimmer setting created a better look than fewer signs with a brighter setting. I don't think I've used Intensity 3, especially on a larger sign, but that's the great thing about this game. If you find a great use for Intensity 3 on your signs, I'd love to see it. Also, keep in mind when experimenting, the painted beam is an amazing tool. Make sure you rotate it to change the angle to which a sign will snap. While Lumen is my favorite new feature in Update 8, it certainly isn't the only one. In fact, a very close runner-up for me is the ability to nudge items and blueprints before you construct. The H key locks the hologram, which allows you to move and get a closer look at placement if needed, and to use your arrow keys to nudge the hologram horizontally in any of 4 directions. There's no vertical nudging, so make sure you're in the correct position vertically. I can't adequately explain how much time and stress this feature has saved me, not just when building normal items where I needed exact placement, but also getting blueprints to easily slide into place. Speaking of blueprints, in the third place of my most favorite features is the ability to delete entire blueprints in one click. I needed to use that feature multiple times on these mining truck depots I made using a blueprint, and it saved me countless hours deleting individual items, as I've done so many times before in Update 7. Ironically, with the addition of blueprint nudging, I've needed this feature much less, as I'm far more likely to place it correctly the first time. Though not as impactful to me as the 3 I've mentioned, Update 8 includes plenty of other great features. I've only recently started using the power towers, but they have been very helpful in expanding unlimited power throughout the map, especially when used as part of a blueprint. The ability to zipline, uninterrupted over the aggressive locals below, is a great plus. I've just incorporated priority power switches into my factory and haven't had a chance to really put them to the test, but I'm looking forward to not only being able to protect my power plants from a tripped breaker, but the ability to remotely flip any switch from anywhere on the map. Additional new creatures and map changes round out the new features and continue to add to the complexity of this game. Update 8 Experimental isn't without its problems. Chiefly among them is stability and additional optimization needed for Lumen under the upgraded game engine. I crash to desktop roughly once every 6 to 8 hours of gameplay, and Lumen with ultra settings certainly puts my computer through its paces. I recommend anyone who has a decent rig give Update 8 Experimental a try. In my opinion, as long as you back up your saves, the new features are worth putting up with the occasional crashing. Worst case scenario, if the experimental build is unplayable for you, you can always switch back and reload the save from your backup. As we approach Update 8 moving to early access and get additional patches in the coming weeks and months, stability and performance will only get better. Now that I've completed my starter factory and put in 100 hours, well, to be honest, it's actually around 116, but 100 looked better on the thumbnail. I wanted to discuss one last important design decision of the vertical bus. It comes down to where you place your smart splitters. In the front of each line like I did for most of my factory, or along the length and at the end of each belt like I did for a few lines on my main bus. The advantages of the splitters in the front is that it's more simple and allows for the most flexibility and expansion, particularly in the length of your bus. However, it doesn't allow you to use sushi belts, and therefore the bus can get unmanageable fast like mine did. Sushi belts allow you to put more than one type of item on a single belt, so using them can easily cut down on the number of belts your bus will need. If you want to use sushi belts as an option, using smart splitters to peel the specific item off your bus line allows you to pack all those low-flow items onto one belt and saves a ton of space. Having used both options, the sushi belt option is the setup I'll be using for all my future vertical buses. Speaking of future projects, now that I've unlocked Mark V belts, it's time to expand my influence across the map. The Empire must grow. I want to just take a few minutes to outline what my plans are for the rest of this playthrough and how my Star Wars theme will be worked in. I have 4 mega factories planned that will be based on buildings or ships from the Empire in Star Wars. The first will be a flying Super Star Destroyer that I will use for a fuel plant and oil refinery. My plan is to use 100% of the oil on the map. Everything not already in use on my starter factory will be put to use on the Super Star Destroyer, which is 10,500 oil per minute. That's a lot of fuel gens, roughly 1,500 if I don't use power shards. I plan to build this beast off the Spire coast, and I estimate a length of about 3,000 in-game meters. The catch is, I'd hate to have my flying fortress be tethered to the earth with belts and pipes, so we'll see if we can game it out with enough drones to do the job. I'm already saving money for a new computer when mine quits in protest. And, since you can't drone a liquid, this brings us to our second mega factory, which I'm planning to build on the Gold Coast. My plan is to model this factory off the Citadel Tower on Scarif in Rogue One, and that is the water bottling facility that will need to provide water to the fuel plant. Roughly 35,000 water per minute, bottled. That's 45 Mark V belts worth of bottled water. Next, you can't have drones without batteries, and I plan on using all the remaining sulfur on the map to build them, about 1,500 batteries per minute, in a factory modeled off the Imperial Palace, also known as the Jedi Temple. No nuclear power in this save, our mega fuel plant should do us just fine. This factory will also be my aluminum plant, which will use most of the bauxite on the map. I don't have an exact location picked out yet, but somewhere around the Titan Forest swamp area. Once power is in place, there's only one thing left to automate: the space elevator parts. And you can't have an Empire-themed playthrough without a Death Star, so I'm going to build a 15-floor, floating, spherical factory to automate the final space elevator parts in the game. The plan is to build it pretty high up in the air above the pink forest, pretty much in the center of the map. And again, only use drones to supply it. My hope is that both the Superstar Destroyer and the Death Star are tethered by only a single power line. Is this crazy? Yes. Can the game handle it? I have no idea. Can I handle it? Probably not. But I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna stream it all on YouTube. Either way, success or failure, it should be entertaining and we'll learn a lot about this game in real time. And, most likely, how I deal with failure and disappointment. Currently, I stream 2 nights a week for 6 hours each on YouTube, and then edit the footage down to an hour-and-a-half episode. At the time of this recording, I have 21 episodes uploaded. If you want to watch every minute, the VODs are for you. But if you want to just watch the highlights, look for the episodes. If you're interested in joining me on my journey, you know what to do. If not, well, maybe you'll watch my 250-hour playthrough update video in a few months and join me then. Episode 1 of my series and my community Discord is linked in the description. I hope to see you there. If you have any lingering questions on Update 8, using a vertical bus, or my future plans on YouTube, make sure to ask me in the comments and I promise I'll respond. Thanks so much for watching. It means more to me than you can know. That's it for now. Until next time.